Ian. Catherine and I are going to chat to a very special guest. The latest guidelines for community sports in New Zealand are set to allow athletes to, wait for it, yes, self-identify with whatever gender they desire. That means trans athletes will be able to participate in grassroots sports based on nothing more than a self-declared identity, and they won't be required to provide any proof or explanation. Sports New Zealand's website reads, transgender people can take part in sports in the gender they identify with. It does not ask people to prove or otherwise justify their gender, sex, or gender identity. Save Women's Sport Australasia spokesperson Ro Edge joins me now and joins Catherine and I. Great to see you, Ro. Catherine, of course, is well known here in Australia for the magnificent fight for Save Our Sports, Save Our Women's Sports Australia. You've had a similar fight in New Zealand and it ain't going too well. Tell us about it, Ro.
No, unfortunately, it's not. It seems to be a day for bad ideology, doesn't it? This week, unfortunately, Sport New Zealand decided to prioritise ideology in males over women and girls. So now not allowing a trans-identifying male into women's sports is a form of discrimination, even though we actually have a section in our Human Rights Act which was specifically put there to protect the female category. So it's absolutely madness. A club now can no longer refuse any male who turns up and wishes to self-identify into the female category, even if it's just for the purpose of that sport. And if any female complains, it would be a bullying and harassment charge, and there is actually a disciplinary action that can be taken. So yes, we have well and truly fallen down the hole.
Catherine?
Oh, Ro, I mean, this is worse than we ever imagined. And my question to you would be, what happens to any of these sporting groups if they decide to just not follow these, because they are guidelines, they're not the law. So what would happen to these groups with their funding if they decided not to follow them?
Well, that's something we need to find out, because in the third round of consultation where we forced Sport New Zealand to open it up to our national sporting bodies, we actually specifically put this question to them, whether they would use funding levers to coerce sports into having to adopt them. And they didn't. They tried not to answer the question for quite some time, and then finally they stated that, well, actually they're not interested in funding sports who don't incorporate, the policies they have. But Raylene Castle, who is the CEO of Sport New Zealand, came out this week and said, oh, no, they're just guidelines. So that's something that we really, really need to push with the media. What's been really interesting this week is that we thought the draft was bad, but the finalised version is just appalling. And it's been appalling enough that it's actually triggered some of our media over here. It's the first time where I've actually had calls from them saying, can we have an interview? And off the record chats saying they can't believe how bad this is. So, it's still a battle, but...
Well, Ro, I've watched, and many Australians have watched, Catherine, who was right at the front of this fight in Australia from the beginning. She took it on. She suffered the most outrageous abuse, defamatory comments, slandering, threats to her and her family. Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Have you had similar things? And I was going to ask that. But also, you do have to have that person, that first person to fight, that other women then gather around and other girls and go, yeah, we're going to get behind this. Is this the experience you need in New Zealand?
Yeah, look, I haven't put myself, I guess, up in a public position like Catherine did, and it was just appalling how she was treated. And she is so on the right side of history on this. And, it's being found now. But, yeah, it's just challenging. So many people now are so scared of speaking up. One journalist I spoke to the other day said, we all totally agree with you, but we're stale pale males, so we can't say anything. Now, everybody thinks that they can't speak up about this, and so they don't. They're all too nervous about a backlash. But if we don't all speak up and get brave, this kind of crap happens.
So, Catherine, what advice can you give Ro, or what suggestions would you say to New Zealand viewers how they can help Ro in this fight? Is it too late? That's one question.
No.
Good.
It's never going to be too late. So Ro has a daughter who's an athlete. I've got 3 little girls, and we have to stand up for these girls who are coming up through the ranks now. But what I'm fearful of, Ro, is that this is transgressing safeguarding. It's also, they're going on about inclusion and well-being, but they've given no thought the women and girls, even to the point of sharing accommodation and overnight situations. So, I mean, do you get the feeling that it's going to take, someone being injured or worse before they actually listen to us?
And that's the really gutting part, isn't it? Like, why should it take that? What was interesting is in their feedback document they put out with their guidelines, it actually included the concerns we raised, but none of them were addressed in the guidelines. They just completely ignored them. So yeah, unfortunately, Catherine, I think it is going to take women and girls actually getting injured and, like withdrawing from participating in the sport for things to change. But it's just such a shame that we have to go through this for that, and that for that to happen. It's costing women and girls opportunities.
And isn't it also the case, Ro, that once it kind of kicks in at the community level, it filters up to the elite level, and this spreads, doesn't it?
Yeah, but what is community sport? Like, in reality, community sport is everything up until you represent your country. I went to watch my nephew on Monday and he was playing in the under-14 tennis nationals. The best young tennis players from around New Zealand, that is community sport. So we are talking the majority of sport in New Zealand. But it's not just about our elite athletes, it's also about social sport and people like young women self-excluding from sport because they're not comfortable sharing changing rooms or playing sports with male bodies. And that may be because they're Muslim or conservative or they've been the subject of sexual violence. So, we're going to have a massive issue with self-exclusion as well.
Ro, Edge, you're doing a brilliant job there, and Catherine offers all her support and advice. We've been through this fight. You can win it, so keep going. You will win because common sense ultimately must succeed over mad left-wing ideology.
Let's hope.
In my opinion. Let's hope so, Ro.
Thank
Catherine,
you.
thanks so much. Now, coming up in a tick, I'll be chatting